Here's the recording of page 424 to 427. Constantine's Vision and a Move East. For a brief while, Diocletian's reforms helped. In each half of the divided empire, the two rulers, the Augustus and his assistant, the Caesar, managed to keep things in order. But by AD 311, each of the four rulers was claiming to be the only Augustus, and they battled over who would rule the empire. One of those battling for power was a brilliant leader named Constantine. In one battle, Constantine led his army towards Rome. According to various legends, as Constantine approached the city, he had a vision. In the sky, he saw a flaming symbol, a blazing Chi-Rho cross, a symbol of Christ. The letters Chi and Rho from the Greek alphabet are the first letters of the Greek word for Christ. Beneath the flaming cross, the legends say Constantine saw fiery letters spelling the Latin words in hoc signo vinces. In this sign you shall conquer. Constantine was not a Christian, but he recognized the symbol of Christ. He had a new emblem made like the one in his vision, and he carried it with him into battle. He ordered his soldiers to mark their shields with the Chi-Rho cross. Marching under this sign, Constantine hoped to defeat his enemies. Constantine won this battle and others after it, and gained control of the empire. Soon after he became emperor, he sent out an edict or order. This edict was called the Edict of Milan because the emperor issued the edict after a meeting in Milan, Italy. The Edict of Milan said that all religions were free to exist in Rome. It mentioned Christianity in particular. No longer were Christians to be persecuted, said the edict, and any property that had been taken from them had to be returned. Constantine's edict was a great turning point in the history of Christianity and the Roman Empire. For some 250 years, under persecuting emperors from Nero to Diocletian, people in the Roman Empire had risked their lives to follow the teachings of Jesus. But Constantine's edict made Christianity a legally recognized faith. Christians could enjoy the full rights of Roman citizens. They could hold offices in government. Once legal, Christianity began spreading faster than ever, especially in the cities where poor and humble folk were clustered. People liked this religion that offered comfort in troubled times and gave them hope for a better future, if not in this life, then in the next. The teachings of Jesus, including the call to love and help one's neighbor, seemed to give meaning to their hard lives. Constantine made one other very important change in the empire. He moved the capital from Rome to a city farther east. For a long time, the Eastern Empire had been stronger and richer than the Western Empire. There was more trade and business in the East. The brightest future, it appeared, lay there. So Constantine decided to locate his new capital in the ancient Greek city of Byzantium. Byzantium lay on the Bosporus, a strait connecting the Mediterranean and Black Seas. The city was a great center of trade between the two halves of the Roman Empire, so it was logical to create a glorious new capital. On the map on page 423, locate the city of Byzantium. And if we go to page 423, here's Rome, here's the Eastern Empire, here's the Western Empire, and here is Byzantium. And there's where the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea connect. In time, Byzantium became known as Constantinople, meaning the city of Constantine. Constantine wanted his capital to be a second Rome. He built theaters, baths, forums, circuses, and churches. Constantinople was a city dedicated to Christianity. It became the center of the eastern branch of the Christian church. When Constantine died in AD 337, he left a busy capital in the east. He also left a rapidly expanding Christian church. However, he himself did not convert to Christianity until the very end of his life. He was baptized on his deathbed and died the first Christian emperor of the Roman world. As we'll see in coming chapters, the Eastern Empire he left behind would flourish for more than 1,000 years. The decline and fall of the Western Empire. While the Eastern Empire was gaining strength, the Western Empire was growing weaker. A tangled knot of emperors, generals, and invading tribes fought over land. No one seemed to be in charge of the government. Roads and buildings fell into disrepair. War, famine, and disease took many lives. In many ways, the most serious threat was the invading tribes, whom the Roman called barbarians. Today, people use the word barbarian to describe someone who is crude, coarse, or brutal. But in the study of history, the term refers to the tough, hard-fighting tribes perched along the Roman Empire's borders. Among the tribes the Romans called barbarians were nomadic peoples such as the Visigoths and Vandals and Huns, who had been living along the fringes of the empire for years. As authority in the Western Empire decayed, these tribes found it easier to overrun Roman lands and towns. In the year 410, the Visigoths plundered and pillaged all the way to the city of Rome itself. When the emperor of the Western Empire and his court heard they were coming, they packed all their belongings and fled the city. For 800 years, Rome's thick walls and mighty armies had kept the city safe from attack. But now the army was weak and frightened, and walls weren't enough to stop the fierce Visigoths. They swarmed into the city and took everything they could lay their hands on. They toppled Rome's beautiful golden statues and melted them down into 5,000 pounds of gold. They loaded their horses with bag after bag of Roman jewelry. They packed up 30,000 pounds of silver, 4,000 silk tunics, 3,000 animal skins, and 3,000 pounds of pepper. When they had finished sacking the city, they burned a few buildings and marched away. In the years that followed, waves of Vandals, Visigoths, Huns, and other tribes swept back and forth across what were once Roman lands. So, what's a barbarian? Like many words in the English language, the word barbarian comes from the Greeks. The ancient Greeks used the word barbaros to describe anyone whose language they couldn't understand. To Greek ears, such people were making a noise that sounded like ba 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 when they spoke. The Romans later picked up the term and used the word barbarus to describe people who couldn't speak Greek or Latin. The West went through emperor after emperor. Finally, one Roman general decided to fix things once and for all. He announced that his son would take over as emperor of the Western Empire. There was only one problem. The general's son was just a child, perhaps as young as 6. The general put royal purple robes on the tiny fellow and ordered the army to obey him. Then he gave his small son a big name, Romulus Augustulus. The people were insulted when they heard such revered names from Roman history being so misused. They called the boy Mamilius, which means little disgrace. The people didn't have to worry about the little disgrace for long. 10 months later, barbarians captured Romulus Augustulus and his father. They killed the father but spared the son. In the year AD 476, they sent Romulus Augustulus to live in a big house on a high hill overlooking the city of Naples. The barbarians gave him a yearly allowance of 6,000 pieces of gold, perhaps as a sign of respect for Rome's former greatness. The last Roman emperor, who was just a little boy, was locked up far away from the throne. And that was the end of the Roman Empire in the West. Civilization, however, did not die out in the West. The Christian church began filling many roles the Roman government could no longer handle. More and more people turned to the church and depended on it. Still, an age had passed away. The light shining from the classical world, the glory of Greece and Rome, grew dimmer. With the fall of the old Roman Empire, that light went out in Western Europe. And that's the end of the reading of page 424 to 427.